we are back after Thanksgiving. Hope everybody had a wonderful Thanksgiving. Laura, did you have a good Thanksgiving?
I did. What about you guys?
It was good. It was good. I cooked. It was busy. We had lots of family in town,
Yeah.
except some family wasn't able to come from back east, which is always sad. But
Yeah.
it was nice.
Hi.
Rob's not here today.
I'm
gone. He's here, but he's gone.
He's making an appearance.
He's made his little pop-up appearance.
Yeah.
We used to call him the pop-up producer because he would be on the road with me when I was working, and he would just pop up. There he is. All right, so this is so exciting. Laura has had an amazing couple of weeks. She has been in the Daily Mail, 3 times now?
Something like that.
In the past month alone, because she's doing amazing work. And this is the thing. Laura is doing something that no one else has done. I don't care how many people pretend that they do what Laura's doing. They have not. She has been doing this for a decade, working with these offenders on San Quentin's death row. She's gone in there. As you all know, she was with Lawrence Bittaker on his deathbed and was able to retrieve information about missing victims that no one was able to do. So this is what we love about Laura. She's so persistent and she's so knowledgeable about serial killers and what makes them tick, which is what we're trying to get to the bottom of so that we can maybe prevent future serial killers from going out and hurting people. So one of the articles that was really interesting that she did in the past couple of weeks was the 7 signs?
Mm-hmm. Well,
7,
well, not signs, really, stages.
Stages. Yeah. 7 stages of the serial killer, which I really want to talk about because I think it's really interesting to understand how people can morph in from being a human being baby into this person that can stalk and kill other human beings. We are like the only species that does this, I believe, except maybe one other. So to me, it's just it's a fascinating study on human nature. Like,
yeah,
how does this happen?
It is.
All right, Laura. So tell me about how you came upon creating the 7 stages. I'm sure that other people have done this as well. There's tons of books about this, and many people have studied the 7 stages of serial killers. But what is your take on this?
Yeah, it's pretty universal, but I would say, I explored more in depth in my research of the 7 stages they go through. But I want to talk about, we'll go through each stage. But you're right about that. Humans are the only animal that kills for pleasure, except for a very rare breed of hyena that are known to go on the beaches and crack the necks of baby seals for no reason, not to hunt, not to eat, just for the pure pleasure. And they're actually being studied. But besides for that, humans are the other one. And it actually goes against, our primal instincts to survive and actually, procreate, because that's what we're supposed to do. Right. So a serial killer is going against that. I mean, they're killing off, women typically who bring, babies into the world. We procreate. So I think that's actually why we're so drawn to serial killers. It's something primal. It's something survival within us.
I think so too. And I think as women, I think why women are fascinated with this is because we want to know so we can protect ourselves. Right. It is really scary. It's really scary. I mean, there's sometimes where I'll wake up and bolt up in the middle of the night if I hear a noise and I'm like imagining all these scenarios of all these things we've talked about and how predatorial these people are and how easy it is for them to get access to your home, even if you have a security system, and how if they have their sights set on you, that's it. So that's an interesting thought that they focus on women because women are easier prey.
They are. This is why they go after elderly or children and women. They're going after prey that they think they can get or manipulate somebody weaker than them.
And there's so many stories of this, of men that you meet and how many times you meet someone and you get a weird vibe. You have to trust that vibe.
You do.
We do have that instinct for a reason.
Yeah.
And if you feel sorry for someone, you get a weird vibe. Because I remember when we did the Green River Killer, one of the victims, Kelly, she was telling friends that she felt bad for Gary Ridgway, the Green River Killer. She was like, he's just a lonely, pathetic guy. A lonely, pathetic guy who killed almost 100 women. So it's like you have to be really cautious about that feeling of pity for men. or it's like they're really skilled. What is that, Laura? How are they so skilled at drawing out that empathy from us when they're planning to kill us?
Well, I'll do another episode where we'll dive into psychopathy and their tactics, because I've been studying their tactics in person for the last 10 years. And I've seen their moves. I've seen it up close and personal. They're skilled. They're very, very skilled. I mean, this is why you need a doctor's degree to go into prisons to become a forensic psychologist. These guys
Mhm.
are manipulators. They're conning doctors, nurses, psychologists, judges, lawyers, very professional people are still getting conned by these people. So they're good at what they do.
Mhm.
Anybody can be a victim.
What about, okay, so what is stage 1?
Okay, so stage 1, this is now with sexual offenders, typically the norm, most will stay here. They will never even leave stage 1, which is the fantasy period. Now, this is when the dark fantasies start to emerge. And typically it'll start off slow. Stage 1 is, they might just start to have darker fantasies or start to think about darker things sexually. And like I said, it usually can stop here. Usually others don't move on to these next stages. But let's get into, let me pull up my notes. So I have some on stage 1, 2. And one thing I found in my study is during this stage, the common thing that all the serial killers were looking at were True Detective magazines during this phase.
Huh.
Mm-hmm.
True Detective magazines, do those still exist?
I don't know if they still do. I ordered a couple copies back in the day because they were all talking about these magazines. I'm like, what are in these magazines?
What was in them?
Really like hardcore. They were detective magazines, like they're true crime magazines from like back from like I think 70s, 80s. But there's all these pictures of like girls in lingerie tied up and like very violent sexual poses.
Mhm.
So I could see back then when they didn't have the internet, you would go to these kind of sorts. You would go to like True Detective magazine instead of
So a lot of these things start obviously in adolescence.
yeah.
And then in adolescence, is it because that they are, hold on, sorry. In adolescence, is this because they're not getting any kind of outlet sexually because they're not meeting girls, or they're too shy to meet girls? Or is this just like, is this at the age where they can be with girls, or before that?
Well, I have one serial killer in my study. He told me at the age of 7 years old that he's convicted on 12. He's admitted to more. Sexual sadist, thrill killer. He said at the age of 7, he saw a Playboy magazine that was his father's with a girl tied up to a tree. And that's where his started. And he remembers it very vividly, specifically. And that was the cause for where his stemmed from. Seeing it at such a young age, such a violent, sexual pose in that Playboy magazine.
I've read this before, and I've talked to therapists about this, that children should not be exposed to pornography at all, because it can really damage their psyche. And people don't realize that. And, there was certain instances where we were interviewing some people who were victims of horrific crimes. And they said that the first thing that they noticed was that the person that was hurting them was acting out something almost as if they weren't there.
Mm-hmm.
And it just seems to me that a child at 7 years old, where their brain hasn't formulated completely, is it a sensory thing? I mean, that's just so young for this to start.
It really is young, because I remember, and I write about this in my book, when I saw Silence of the Lambs, the movie poster, and I was a year or like a year and a half, but I remember it. And I remember knowing, like, I was drawn to it, and I saw the skull on the moth and asking, like, what is that? But I couldn't articulate what I was seeing or asking. But I knew it was like a symbol of death or something. And it stayed with me for my entire life. So seeing such a violent sexual image, especially at that age, and he can trace it back all the way back to, that's the pinpoint. That's what he saw. That's what stayed with him. That's what started it all. Yeah, you got to look at these images, and you look at the violent movies, the violent video games. I mean, young minds are sponges, absorbing
Oh
everything.
yeah, I fully believe that, and I believe that a lot of these school shootings are coming out of the fact that kids are desensitized.
Yes,
I don't think they realize that when they shoot someone, they die.
they die.
You don't get another little, video game person to pop up and live.
Live.
I do believe that. I mean, my stepdaughter had a school shooting here and at her school, and it was horrifying. But it was almost like this kid, same thing, like living in a fantasy world. They're not living in reality.
Right.
Okay, so a 7-year-old child can see something pornographic and violent, and it can trigger his brain chemistry.
Yeah. And Wayne Adam Ford also reported same thing around the same age. He reports age 6. He saw. He said he was a True Detective magazine, actually.
Again, with the True Detective magazine, we need to look into that.
Well, if you remember, what's the quote?
I don't think I was too young to have seen any of those. But
I'll send you a copy if I have.
Yeah, I'm interested to see what it actually is.
What is in these magazines? Why are they going crazy over them? And when I went up with Rob to where was it? Up to Philo, to where Ing and Lake were, we found the woman who ran the country store, the only country store in this tiny little town. And when we spoke to her, she goes, I just remember he was so creepy, and he would come in and read this magazine for hours and hours.
True Detective.
Saying to her, I go, what was the magazine? And she was like, oh, what was it? What was it? That detective magazine from back in the day. I was like, True Detective? And she's like, that's the one.
Wow.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, that's really interesting. We have to look into that a little bit more and see like what is that? So
all of them report this. Like, I think it was, 96% of the study have all said they looked at True Detective during phase 1 in my study. Yeah.
Huh.
Yeah. And early, they all report early encounters, either childhood or teenage years, where they're seeing these violent images, seeing the True Detective, or an image like a True Detective magazine, like the one serial killer I just mentioned where he was 7. It was in Playboy, he said. He remembers specifically of her tied to the tree. But every single one has reported some type of violent sexual image from either the teen years or childhood.
So how does it go from the fantasy of seeing these images and creating this fantasy world in your head, maybe getting rejected by girls at a young age, sparks more of a fantasy? I did know someone who used to joke around all the time and say, oh, I'm going to put you in a cage.
Yeah.
And I would be like, at first it was kind of funny. And then after a while, you're like, that's not funny.
Well, they say, like when it comes to like sexual things, it kind of like, it'll flip. Like, say you're a CEO of a company or something like that. You're in control and you have power and responsibility. And that's a burden, that's a weight every day. They say like, and you don't want to be that way in your sex life. So it kind of switches. So now let's look at them. Let's look at these serial killers and what they're doing. And they want to tie somebody up, or they want that dominance, that control. How are they feeling in their life?
Powerless.
Powerless. Right. Exactly. Afraid.
Maybe domineering mother, potentially.
Right. Rejected mother, girlfriend, maybe father. They felt out of control, afraid.
Well, what is like women have experienced childhood abuse from their fathers, or being rejected by their parents, or severe emotional, physical, mental abuse, but yet the percentage of women flipping into a serial killer is slim to none compared to men. What is it? Is it more because they have predatory gene, or is it more because they have testosterone?
It really comes down to hormones are a big factor, but also the brain is different.
Right.
Our bodies are different. That's where it really comes down to. Our brains are different, our bodies are different. And how Alan always explains it is, okay, in a man, think of like, when they say like lines cross, a man in the back of his head, like the 2 lines are right there. For women, it's right here. Okay.
Right.
So once these wires kind of cross, which is sex and violence, you can't untwist them. They're merged. They're fused together. It's very easy for men's to go cross and fuse together. Much harder for women. It would take a lot of trauma, like Eileen Warnos,
Yeah.
an example of that, for that to actually happen, within our brain. So it's easier for men from that aspect. And then you got to take into account, which Rob always brings up, testosterone too.
Right. Of course. I mean, they have testosterone on a level that we don't have.
Right.
And it does. I can see it like when, I work with a lot of men and you can see like when they get, the anger can flip like that. And
Right.
it's just a different, I guess, reaction or hormonal reaction.
Right. And then, the levels in your brain, the serotonin, I have ADHD. So my dopamine levels go down in the morning because of this. And I notice in the morning, if my dopamine level is down, I'm very irritable. I'm very aggressive at points in the morning.
Yeah.
This is because, it's just in my brain, you live with it, you work through it. Yeah. So, I mean, every little thing, this is like our brains are a machine, with so many different facets all functioning. And just one thing could be low. Maybe the serotonin's low, dopamine's low, the wires have fused, bad childhood trauma. It's all just coming together. Too much testosterone, just pumping, adrenaline, everything.
So what goes from the fantasy level to the next stage? Like, why? How do you cross the line? So you have fantasies, you have all these things you're imagining and sexual violent images that you're seeing, and you're young, you're a child, teenager, adolescent, and then all of a sudden you flip from that to making that a reality. Like, that's a big jump.
Is it though? So let's put it in, because this is how the serial killers have explained it to me, and I'm going to explain it to everybody here too. And then I was like, okay, I see what you're saying. Cindy, if you write a screenplay, you have a vision in your head and you're like, oh yeah, you write it all down. You're thinking about it nonstop. What would be your next thing you would do? You would go pitch it.
Make it.
Yeah. But you would go start to pitch it and start to get feelers out of
I would just go do it.
Yeah. Same thing with that.
I see what you're saying. Okay, so they've created this fantasy, but now they want to see it in real life.
Yeah.
So exactly. It's creative energy that's turned dark and ugly.
Pretty much. Yeah.
Well, that's scary.
But it is. It's their movie. It's their screenplay in their head.
Right.
Yeah. That they now want to, make in real life, really.
Recently in the news, the Menendez brothers, there's been a lot of controversy about them. I'm just curious. I mean, I feel like they're telling the truth, that they were really abused, and that can trigger you to cross that line against a parent or just do that. What is your experience with that?
That's known, with parricide, that if there is sexual abuse, there have been a lot of reported cases of that happening.
Yeah, because sexual abuse is beyond worse.
It is. And they will typically in parricide, they will kill both parents, because typically the other parent knows about it, might be an enabler.
Doesn't do anything.
Right.
You're complicit. So if you're complicit, you're not doing anything about it.
Correct. So they will blame both parents, and typically it is both parents who do get killed. Look at Lizzie Borden is a classic example of that right there. There was a lot of allegations that, the father was, assaulting Lizzie and her sister, Emma. The stepmother knew about it, did nothing. Same thing.
Okay. So stage 2 is now the crossover from fantasy to reality.
Mm-hmm.
And in your experience, did a lot of the serial killers that you've spoken to start as teenagers?
They would, yeah. Well, I think they would move. I have a lot. Let me see if I do have a statistic on it for number 2. It's not as much as number 1, but quite a few numbers. So phase 2 is planning. In this phase, a serial killer begins prepping and planning for their crimes. They'll start, looking for potential victims, identifying their vulnerabilities. This could be where they're starting to stalk them, like when they're going out at night, when they're going out during the day, their work schedule. that kind of stuff. Gathering data and information. They're pretty much essentially doing the same work as a PI. They're surveilling you.
Right. They're
And
using surveillance. I mean, the stalking. So is the stalking giving them some kind of energetic charge? Like what is going on?
Oh yeah, totally. Because they're getting a sense of power and control over you. They're watching you. They know all about your life, but you might not even know them. You might have no idea
that's to me. See, this is the thing where we've talked about this on Deadly Roots. Like the fact that you could just be wandering down the street or at the store and someone's watching you and you don't even know it.
No idea. No idea.
I mean, my mother is in her 70s and had a horrible thing happen recently in Las Vegas where she was coming out of the store and my mother's looks like she's in her 50s. My mother's beautiful and has big blonde curly hair. And she was coming out of the store and she noticed that someone was in front of her car, like kind of parked weird like this. Mm-hmm. And when she got to the car, the man had like opened the door. He was a young man too, in his 20s. And he had opened the car door and he exposed himself to her. And he said, I've been following you. And she freaked out and she ran back to the store and called the police. But she was like, Cindy, the scariest part to me is that he said he was watching me and following me. Mm-hmm. And the fact that he was so young and she's an older woman, it was so terrible. I was like beyond freaked out. We were just all couldn't believe what happened.
Yeah.
But that to me, that behavior, that part is the scariest part.
And you have to understand, you're not thinking with these guys, typically they don't have a rational mind. They get lost in delusions. So what people don't understand is all you can do is smile at them sometimes or wave or be friendly. To them, that's signaling she wants me. She wants this. She wants me to stalk her. She wants it really. This is how warped their brains are.
Yeah. Yeah. My friends and I have talked about this. Like there would be men that you would just literally say hi to and they would think that you smile at and they take that as like, oh, she's in love with me. She wants
me. They do.
And what is that? What is that?
That's just straight delusion. That's just
someone who's completely delusional and crazy.
It is. And when they're in the fantasy world, they're living in a fantasy world. So it's not hard for them to see, somebody smile at them and think, oh, that's the person I want for my movie, for my fantasy. You know what I'm saying?
So when you say that, so like the fantasy, do they think that it's fake, that it's not real, or do they know that it's real and it's happening and that they're really hurting someone? Or are they living in such a delusion that they don't know?
I would say,
or do they just black out of what they're doing? I just don't understand how you go from.
Very crazy. It is crazy. So I'm trying to do it how they explain it to me. So for me, I'll do it with you for like a movie or a TV show. Like for me, they explained it in book terms, so I would get it. Is like you have a vision in your head. I think we all do this. Like if you're going to go on vacation with your friends or something, you have like this idea in your head, and then maybe something goes wrong. It turns into a shit show, and you still have fun. It's just, but never it's never matches. Yeah. And
it's always the opposite too. Like if you have I don't really want to go, it usually works out better than you think.
Right. With them, it's like that same thing. Like we all do it. We all build it up. Like this is going to be the best day ever at the amusement park or whatever. But maybe shit happens and you end up leaving, it's hot and you're wet and you're tired or something, whatever. It's never just as we picture it. Sometimes it is better than we expect. Sometimes it's not. But the same thing happens with their fantasies. So it's always but theirs are always so built up to the extreme. And the thing is, it's never, ever going to ever be better than their fantasy, because in their fantasy, they actually think the girl wants this or their victim wants this, which is never, ever going to happen and is just not a reality. And so the fantasy is obviously never going to match their action and really their delusion.
What did Bittaker say about these things? I'm just curious to see what his...
Oh, he talks about this a lot. And Bittaker said, his fantasy, I think even on the show, and I think we've played a couple of clips of it where he says, I wanted a boyfriend-girlfriend scenario.
Huh.
How much does his action match up with his fantasy?
None. I mean, it's just crazy talk. How do you think that torturing a woman like the way he did in such a disgusting, brutal, horrifying way, how does that lead to, is it because of control? You think that is a relationship?
Yeah. He thinks that's why he wanted to build that, whole thing with the
Right.
aliens and the robots. If he
Right.
could get her alone someplace, where he's the only person she would follow. Cloverfield, the movie Cloverfield. Yeah.
It's the same thing with Ing and that bunker. And it's like they build these bunkers and they want to put these women in a box, in a cage. You see the cage
Or a
thing.
dolly. That's I always say that to them. I go, you guys want a dolly.
A doll, right, that you can just pick up and play with
when you want,
and then put her down. And then if you feel like hurting her, you can. And then whatever, you do whatever you want. So
Yeah.
is it because they're mentally just stunted at an age?
Yeah, well, they are. I mean,
Age that they just never. I mean, I don't know. Bittaker to me seemed very scary because he is so manipulative and so
just smart.
So many layers to him.
Yeah.
He's very, very smart. Yeah. He was very smart. And I just think his level of manipulation.
I would say probably him and Doug are like two of the most formidable ones I've gone up against.
Who? Bittaker and who else? You cut out?
Douglas Clark. Those two were like.
Douglas Clark too. Yeah. I mean, he was just adamant. I mean, in the last interview you did with him before he died, I mean, he literally was trying to explain to me that he was innocent. He still refused to believe.
When he was talking about having the dead body in the back of his car. Yeah.
In the back of his car. And it's so scary that genetically we are connected to these.
I know, he's our cousin, right? Yeah.
That's interesting to me. I mean, it's like the delusion, I think. It's just the delusion of just not wanting to accept what they did.
Yeah.
But Bittaker was even more scary than Douglas Clark to me because
I don't think I'll ever come across another one like Larry. I think he was my white whale.
Unless you talk to BTK, maybe.
And I don't know. I don't even know. I still think, because I've spoken with BTK and I don't get the level. Like Bittaker was just a level of evil intelligence. That's what I would put. Like
exactly.
I've never seen before. Like, and
yeah.
What makes him scarier than BTK is BTK loves the attention, loves to be shown. Bittaker was like operating in the shadows for 20 years, and he was just going. Like he didn't want to be known. He wanted to he had a pure love for it. He didn't want to be found or known. It was because Norris, messed up. He would have just kept going his whole lifetime, as where BTK wanted the notoriety and stuff, where like Bittaker was just born this way,
I agree with you on that. I think that Bittaker was living in the shadows, wanted to live in the shadows, didn't care about the fame, didn't care about any of that stuff. He just really enjoyed hurting and killing people. So to me, he is like such an evil entity. Like literally when we play his tapes, I will run around the house with like all of the crosses I've ever gotten from Italy and every church I've ever been to, because I feel like his energy is just so
strong
and it's demonic.
It's dark. It's really dark.
He's a demon. I don't care what anybody says. I don't even think he was human. Just that was the things that he said to you.
Said in my mind when I first read his case in college and dropped the book. I was like, they got to be demons. Like
him more than Norris. I just feel like he was just smarter.
He was smarter. Yeah, like Norris, I think if Norris would have definitely killed on his own, but he would have been caught.
I don't think that he got the pleasure that Bittaker got from it. I can't explain how I feel. I mean, I think he did too, but I think maybe that's the wrong thing I'm saying. I just feel like with Bittaker, he just, that's what his life plan was.
Right.
It just was. That was his destiny. And he was going to fulfill that destiny.
He was
hurt and kill people. That was his destiny. Whereas Norris, I felt like was kind of like he would have killed people and then maybe not for a while and then killed people. But I think with Bittaker, it was just like he had to keep feeding that beast.
What was, I think, even scarier about Bittaker is like, he brought, Norris in with him, but also at CMC, it wasn't just him and Norris and Shootman. I mean, there was a group of them that were, talking about their sexual fantasies. Hello, stage one. This is what's happening in prison. But there was a big group of them. And then when he gets out, they also recruit Jackson in. So, I mean, it was almost like Bittaker was up in the ante by becoming a teacher of this. It was like he was bringing more guys in and teaching them. And I've always said, there was a teacher-student vibe and a very different dynamic. He was teaching me how to think like a serial killer in in order to, go out to see them, hunt them, catch them, be able to think like them, ahead of them type of thing. But he loved that teacher role. Had he not been caught, I think he would have bred more Norrises along the way. And I think that was his ultimate goal.
Absolutely. I agree with you 100%. Yes. Agreed. All right. So stage 2 is actually the act of like making it happen, making it a reality.
Yeah. So they're planning. Now, this is where it goes from like, okay, it's not just in my head now. They're putting a little bit of like action into it. This is when they'll start, gathering data, info, watching people.
So for someone who's around one of these people who's doing these things, what should they watch out for? Like, what kind of behavior should they be on the lookout for? If like you have someone in your life who is a relative or a friend or a coworker, what should you be looking for? Or besides trusting your instinct, what else, other signs are there to be able to see if someone's turning into something dark?
The show You on Netflix does a really, really great job of showing a obsessive sexual predator and the way he watches them and hunts them and like gets so crazy obsessed with them. I think they do a really good job, and it shows like how he is always outside the house with the baseball cap and watching them through their windows and watching them at their place of work, but casually bumping into them, which is very indicative of something they do. Like there's going to be a time where they do want to make contact, and it might just be a wave. It might just be a smile. It might just be it'll seem like very innocent, like a quick little bump. They'll get so high off of like those quick little things. So the best thing you can do is just to be aware of your surroundings. Always be aware. The problem is, especially now, these guys don't even have to leave their house to stalk you.
Yeah, I know.
That's problem.
Why we always encourage people, don't post every 5 minutes.
Don't post.
Like, I don't want people to
don't post. Like, be very conscientious of like when you post inside your home, what you're showing. Because literally anybody can take a screenshot now, zoom up. I found a guy off grid working a case, no joke, from a Christmas stocking from 10 years ago.
Wow.
And I mean, you're not thinking about every little thing when you take a photo, but if somebody's like hunting you, like I'm doing it through PI work, but still, a predator is going to be looking at the photos the same way I am. And we can glean so much info just from like these little pictures that you would never think anything of. We can still track you down.
I know, it's terrifying. That's that scares me about social media and stuff like that. It's just the access that people have to stalking you online. I mean, I've been cyber stalked. It's a nightmare. And you've been cyber stalked. I mean, I've been physically stalked. I think you have too. Yeah. It's scary. And it's really scary. And it's like, you got to wonder what's going on in someone's mind that you're going to waste your time stalking me. What are you doing?
It's like, scary because it's like, it's just a scary feeling when you're stalked. I've been stalked. I've come to you about it. Yeah. You've been really badly stalked. It's just a scary feeling when this person is obsessed with you and watching every little thing you do, and like their life is revolving around you. And it's
it's the creepiest
feeling in the world. You can't even describe it. It's chilling. It is. And it's not, I hope nobody ever goes through it.
No, me too. It's awful. And
it's the worst thing imaginable. And 2 million people are stalked every year.
It's unbelievable, right?
Yeah.
That happens. And you got to wonder what causes it, right? So is it stage 2? Is that it? Stage 2 is stalking and doing this weird behavior.
Yeah. Watching all of that. When we talked about
voyeurism in a sense,
he's a perfect one. He was a hunter. He was a stalker.
I'm sorry, I cut you off in the beginning. Say that again.
Michael Gargiulo, the Hollywood Ripper. He's a good prime example of him watching, all those girls like intensely before he killed them all. And I keep reading everything. They're like blaming Ashton Kutcher for Ashley Ellerin. He has admitted behind bars. They even have him on recording it, admitting to killing Ashley Ellerin, for everybody listening.
Michael
I know Ashton Kutcher's.
No, has nothing to do. Ashton Kutcher did not kill her, and Michael Gargiulo has admitted it. That he killed her.
He's admitted it. Yeah.
Yeah. So he's guilty. He did it. He has admitted it. Ashton Kutcher did not kill her. So
No,
people
no.
stop saying that. It's ridiculous.
Yeah. There's no connection there. He was watching, I mean, he was sitting in her truck in front of her house in his truck, like all the neighbors.
And again, what
Yeah.
people were saying about him was like, oh, he was a nice guy. Like, whatever. We say hi. He was a little weird, but we'd say hello to him and, whatever. And that's what I'm saying. Like, there's so many of those types of people wandering around where you get this vibe from them that like something's off, but like, you're like, oh, it's maybe I'm overreacting.
Exactly. So you're going to hear like, even with Ashley and the, who is it? Maria Bruno, like both of them were saying to friends, like, he's creepy, but they couldn't, because energetically when we pick up on a predator, we like the human energy kind of like fails us with words. Like we don't know how to describe what we're feeling because it's energetic. We can feel their predator. Like there's something innately in us for our survival that we're picking up on them, that even though they seem so nice and they have a smile on their face, there's something inside of him. We know they're hunting us and we pick up on it, but we don't know what to say about it. So we use the word creepy. There's something creepy about him. Yeah, because we can literally feel that he's hunting me. So to us, it feels creepy. So anytime, if you get that vibe where you're like, he feels creepy, he feels me, there's a reason you're getting that vibe. And it's because he's hunting you. And that's why you'll hear that a lot. Like, he just gave me the creeps. He's giving you shivers. Yeah, because he's thinking about killing you. And you are picking up on that energy of it.
Yeah, I had something happen recently where I felt someone's energy before I saw them.
Mm-hmm.
I was like, what am I feeling? And I'm looking around and I'm like, something's not right. And then I saw this person and I was totally freaked out because I could feel my hair on the back of my neck stood up. And I was like, this person has bad energy. There's something wrong here. And you have to be on alert all the time. It's sad, but we have to be.
Yeah.
All right. So stage 2, stalking, voyeurism, watching, all these little things. And then what happens next? What's the next stage?
So let's see. What else? I want to make sure I don't skip anything. Okay, so these are some of the psychological characteristics that they will go through with phase 2. And it's increased excitement and the anticipation. So they're like gearing up for actually turning this into action.
And that comes from what? Not having any control over their life, maybe.
Right.
Or feeling powerless, or feeling out of control, or feeling like maybe rejected.
Right. Oh, definitely. All of those. Every single one.
So they're looking for something where they feel like they can have control over a situation, where they have
powerful, where they're in control, where they
and I guess powerful. If you think about it, if you're being watched by someone and you don't know, right? That person is getting an exciting feeling from that.
Oh yeah. 100%. Yeah.
Because they're like, ooh, I'm in control of this situation now. That's why I guess the exes and all this stuff, that's why they do these things, which is nuts.
Yep. Number 2 is growing a sense of control and empowerment. Yep. Okay, this is where they start to actually rationalize what they want to do. So this, even if they're starting to have doubts or thinking it's wrong, this is where psychologically they might start to rationalize. This is where the detachment from their potential victims might come, and that will come after the rationalization. Is, this isn't wrong. That victim, well, look at their life. Maybe she's on drugs. Maybe she's a sex worker. Like, this is like the narrative, the story that they are telling themselves inside their head. This is, as sick as it sounds, I mean, this is how it goes. This is psychologically what they go through. This is escalating mental rehearsal and plan of the planned crimes. So yeah, I mean, this is literally them playing this out even more. And
well, that's why a lot of the victims are living on the fringe. You have runaways, with drug addicts, you have prostitutes, you have sex workers, you have women who they feel are disposable, like that no one's going to come looking for them, which is disgraceful. And what's also terrible, and I've said this many times and I've been trying to fight this for many years, is that a lot of these victims don't get the media attention because they are living on the fringe. Like when I did the serial killings in New Mexico, I mean, there's hundreds of, girls that just vanished and disappeared, and no one
never talked about. No,
talks about it. And when I was investigating it, I was really getting a lot of pushback to like stay away.
Yeah.
No one wants to
So
know.
sick. You know, if any type of sex worker, indigenous, even transgender, it's so sick. They're just pushed down to bottom barrel.
Tell me what this is.
Oh, the Red Graves. I just want to give them a shout out. So they test genetic genealogy for Jane Does, John Does, but they have a whole sector on transgender. So they focus on the ones that, because, you know, they're usually pushed down to the bottom of the barrel.
Yes.
They've stepped up and they're testing a lot for them and just doing some incredible work. So I just want to give a shout out to the Red Graves.
Oh, nice. Okay, good. I have a very good transgender friend, and in her group, a lot of them were sex workers, and people died all the time. They get murdered, and no one ever did anything about it. And this went on forever.
Yeah.
And we're trying so hard to like get this into the mainstream media that like this is a thing that's happening. And now, thankfully, people are talking about transgender, people in their lives. But this was 10 years ago. Nobody wanted me to talk about this stuff. They told me to go away. And so I think it's really good. Good job, Red Graves. We'll have to promote them a little bit more.
Yeah, no, it's true. It's so sad, like the cases that just don't get any media coverage.
No, but I think that that's part of this whole psychopathy. Like they look at this like, okay, well, I'm rationalizing in my brain why I'm going to kill this person. And if this person is doing something that I'm going to say, oh, it's immoral, then that gives me a reason to kill them. Okay, I feel better now. I can go do it.
Right.
It's just like how your brain rationalizes anything.
Anything. Right. They're going through the same motions like we are. That's why I try to break it down onto a level we can understand, because it's very similar to things we do, just on a very, very warped level.
Yeah, like yesterday, I'm on a diet, but I rationalized I wanted a piece of chocolate. I had it. Right? I was rationalized. Well, I can work out an extra half an hour, but right, whatever. Something that small and stupid. We do it all the time.
Right. They're doing the same thing, just on a very different level. So some of the behavioral indicators you can look for, I do have these in my study, which I found with my offenders. Okay, so the psychological, behavioral, let's see. Now their daily routines will change, and I'm going to wait in phase 3. I'm going to talk about this more. You're going to see a lot of changes in their daily routines for phase 2 to phase 3. And so this is where, if you're a family member or a close friend of theirs or a coworker, you will see these signs. But you have to be pretty close to the offender. But you will start to see these signs. And I think, with BTK, I think his wife has publicly talked about it a lot. Like I think she's walked in on some stuff, and he asked her to try some stuff. A lot of the Roy Hazelwood did an amazing book on sexual status where he interviewed all the wives and the girlfriends of these guys. Incredible research. And they all reported, like, this is where a lot of the girlfriends or wives said he wanted to try some really weird sexual stuff, like tying up or something like that. Not all of them will. They'll typically use a lot of their dark sexual fantasies on this surrogate that they're already planning for. But some have reported like they will start to get a little more violent in their sexual life at home as well. They're also going to be going out more because, now phase 3, when they're going to start to hunt, they're going to be gone a lot, and it's going to be unexplainable. They're not going to be at work. You're not going to know where they are. They're going to be irritable when they walk out. But they'll be a different person when they walk back in. Think Jekyll and Hyde. When they walk out that door, they're the monster. They're irritated. They need a fix. They're going to go troll. Even just trolling will get them, that dopamine high and rush and adrenaline, whatever. When they come back in, they're going to be the Boy Scout again.
Okay, so that's interesting. So what causes someone to go from being like, like this, and then all of a sudden you have to have that dopamine rush and it's satisfied by trolling? How's that? How?
They're still getting, like, just like I said, like, here are the psychological characters: is sense of power and control, increased in excitement. They're getting that fix they're going to get from the capture and the kill and the rape and all that, but they're getting it they're getting the same high, kind of like on a lower level, but they're still getting a pretty good high from just going out and watching you through that window.
So it's about the dopamine. So a lot of these people suffer trauma as children.
Everything. It gives them a lot of like adrenaline rushes, dopamine rushes. Like, it's that excitement. that they're feeling inside. It's just
And
going
there's
to
no empathy. There's no feelings of empathy or
is now what happens in the brain is a correlation now forms. So when we do something that we like, right? Even if we exercise, we release dopamine and chemicals in our brain that make us feel good. We want to keep doing this. We feel good. We feel healthy. We want to keep doing it. This is why, okay, you know what? I'm going to work out every day. You keep doing it. You're like, I feel great. It's kind of the same with them. It's like they keep doing it. They feel better. They feel better. They feel better. Oh, I feel so good. I want to do this every night, just like we're working out. Like, oh, this feels great. It's that same type of thing. It starts to feel good and they want to keep doing it and doing it and doing it because it's starting to make them feel so good. And now the correlation is formed. If I do this, I feel good.
it's just so unbelievable. Okay, so then there's no empathy though.
No. This is where they're almost like they call like chasing the dragon for like a drug addict. Same for them. They're chasing a high. They're chasing this because that's what they're getting is a high, going out and that sense of power. Because you got to think they don't have power maybe at work or at home, the rejection from the mother, father, whatever it may be. That void, that need, Alan always talks about the need. That void, that need is being filled also when they're getting that high, going out there and trolling like that.
And as children, what signs are there that a child doesn't have empathy?
That ranges with the CU children.
CU, what's that mean?
The callous unemotional. Remember we talked about that?
Oh, before? Yeah. Mm-hmm.
That ranges. It's very hard with children to diagnose because, especially teenagers, mimic kind of the same. Well, they mimic antisocial personalities. That's why you have to be 18 to diagnose them. It's hard with children because, they kind of also mirror antisocial personality. Like when I work with psychopaths, it's like, I'm hungry. They'll talk a lot about food. They're very primal. Like, I'm tired. I want this. I want that. I'm going to throw a fit. I'm going to throw a tantrum. That's how the psychopaths I work with are. It's very indicative of a child who's like, I want food. I want this. I want this.
Mm-hmm.
They're not thinking of anybody else but themselves. It's about their needs, their wants, Right. So it's harder to look at children and be like, that's a little psychopath.
Right. Because they need these things.
Right. And they're still learning empathy as well, And they're
just turn this off. All right. So stage 3 is acting it out or
kind of. Let's go into stage 3. Is there any more behavioral indicators? Oh, also they might start, this is something to look out for potential victims. This is where they might start taking personal items of the victims. And it can be something very small. Yep. Let's see. Did I miss
like taking personal items like clothing?
It could be, yeah. This is where like if you see those movies where like someone goes into like the girl's house and steals her panties, but it might
Stuff like that is considered psychopathic of stage 3.
But it could be as simple as like literally maybe just going up to somebody's front lawn and taking a little like sign or windmill or garden gnome. It could be a keychain that maybe you leave your keys someplace really quick. It could be something. It could be a piece of hair.
Why do they want it?
It's just like it's a little thing. It's a thing they got off of you. It's another feeling of that power, that control, because now they have something of yours and it's in their possession and you probably don't even know it's in their possession is another aspect of it all.
Well, sure.
Let's see.
I'm sure. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
It's crazy. I know. Let's see. Number 1. I just want to see if I missed any of my research. Yeah. Let's see. The majority of my offenders use the word euphoria, which I put down when describing this. Euphoria. That was pretty well used with majority. Twisted. Okay, here we go. Okay, so phase 3, and now this is every single one has said this has been their favorite phase, is phase 3. So phase 3 is hunting, the hunting stage pretty much. And this goes a little bit beyond the planning of phase 2. So for stage 3, let me get to it. This is where it really takes the turn into an addiction in this stage. Okay. This is when they really begin the real stalking of the potential victims. In this phase, the serial killers actively search for, and this is when they will actually even talk to the potential victims. This is when they'll actually make the contact of it. Now, in my reports, and Bittaker and Norris have, I think I have some audio tapes on the show. We've had him on the show. He's talked about this, where he would be out all day. Remember, like for 15 hours, they'd be just driving around up and down CH, Van Nuys, just photographing girls, asking them if they want to come in, smoke some weed, and they would just do this hours and hours and hours, all day long. And
That's another question I have. So if someone is taking a lot of pictures of random people, random women specifically, that's not normal behavior.
No.
I mean, nonstop pictures.
Nonstop. I don't.
Just constantly taking pictures of other women.
There was one time I was with a friend of mine. It was years ago, and she had a son, and we were at it was a carnival, and there was a guy walking around taking pictures of children, and he had a little badge on. It said and she was like, "Oh, he's probably just with the newspaper," and I just got a vibe, and I said, "I don't think so." And it was the way he was just taking pictures of the kids.
Mm-hmm.
And I literally watched this guy the whole time because I was just like, I just get a bad sense.
Right.
It was just like he did not strike me as a reporter for the newspaper, just here to take
No,
pictures.
it's not normal to be walking around taking pictures of people randomly that you don't know. It's not normal behavior.
No, it's not.
So that's what Bittaker and Norris did. They drove around taking pictures of girls, trying to lure them in with weed and drugs and alcohol.
Yeah, and it doesn't even have to be pictures. I mean, a lot of these guys, and then the one who even said about the Playboy, he reported to me, he would do the same thing. And he goes, it would start off, it was hard. It literally was like a drug, he reports. It could start off as, okay, I'm only going to do it for 2 hours today. He goes, then it'll be up to 4. And he goes, before you know it, he goes, I was out 20 hours a day doing it.
Oh my God.
These guys literally get addicted in this hunting stage. And it's because it's they've all reported what they're feeling is they've all said the word euphoria. This is what it feels like, euphoria. Because now it's like I think it's because for them, I guess it would be the same for a producer as let's say you have a screenplay, you want to do it, you want to make it, you go and you pitch it, and Network goes, love it, here's the money, go make your movie. You would feel like, yes, oh my God, it's happening, right?
Right, yeah.
Same for them in their twisted way. For them, it's like, it's happening. And they're going to make this happen, this crazy delusional fantasy in their mind. So, and now it's all they can think about. So they all, how many reported? I think all of them, they said it escalated very quickly, like just a couple hours to 10 hours, 15 hours. It just kept growing every day. And this is where the majority also reported that a lot of them were more attracted to women in their 20s or college-age girls. But when they tried to do this, when they try to talk to college girls, they're more seasoned. And a lot of more women, women become seasoned and in tune with predators after women have gone through high school and dealt with teenage boys. And they found that they were just too savvy for them or not as naive, where they found where high school girls that they reported are much more naive and not seasoned. And that's why a lot of them targeted teenagers specifically.
That makes sense.
Yeah. They were easier, almost universal, easier prey, naive, trusting. Yeah.
So scary.
Yeah.
All right. Well, this is fascinating. I want to stop here because I want to finish this next week because I think there's so much here to
We'll
talk
do the next 4 stages with
Yeah.
Robinson.
I mean, it's just so much. And
There's
it's
so much. Yeah.
and you have so much experience talking to these offenders to really understand the different phases, so that giving you examples and you can literally just see the transgression, like
It's incredible, especially when you're talking to like
evolution.
when because I have so many of them part of the study. So when they're all answering, the same questions and coming back with me going, and I'm seeing, this word euphoria, I'm seeing, oh, it just went from 5 to 20 hours a day. But I'm like seeing it across the board. I'm like sitting back like a scientist going, oh my God, like here it is. Because they're all saying the same thing. And here are the correlations. And and you're just like, wow. There are a lot of commonalities. There's a lot of correlations happening. And this is what we need. This is the, research we need for this field for forensic psychology, which is
Absolutely
amazing.
It is amazing. You're doing amazing work. Thank you. So this is so interesting. And next week we'll pick up with some more and we'll talk a little bit more about Bittaker because I think that he's such an interesting study on this.
He does. And I have a lot of audio of him actually talking about these fantasies, which we can play.
We can, I don't want to give people ideas, but I do think it's interesting to talk about some of discussing these different phases with you. It's interesting. Okay. All right, Laura. We'll see you next week.
Bye.